Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I want to walk through my two favorite products in every single makeup category, from primer all the way down to lips. If you are new here, hi, I'm Morgan. I focus a lot of the content on my channel on conscious consumerism and really making sure that you love every piece of makeup that you own and that you're excited to use the collection that you have. If that sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go today. And now let's jump into my top two favorites in every makeup category. Okay, first things first, there's a good chance that you can hear my air conditioning running as like a low hum in the background of this video. And I'm sorry about that, but it's super hot here in Colorado and I just can't turn my AC off for the day. This is a video that I first saw from Julia Adams MUA here on YouTube. She did her top 3 favorites in every category, but I own much less makeup than her, so I decided to pick my top 2. And since seeing her video, I've also seen a bunch of other people do a similar concept. This video really resonated with me because it's really looking through your makeup collection and identifying things that you absolutely love to use. So before we jump into the list, I do just want to mention that this is like currently my top 2 favorites in every category. If you asked me, especially in a different season, like if you asked me this winter, my answers would probably be pretty different. My makeup preferences change dramatically with the seasons, so this is what I'm really loving right now as my top favorites. I am going to go in order of application. So first up here is primer. Over the past few months, I would say, I've been really loving the Ordinary High Adherence Silicone Primer. As the name suggests, it is silicone based, which does mean that it blurs pores and imperfections and texture super well. So I've really been loving wearing this underneath of lighter coverage foundations and skin tints in the summer because it gives me a super even, smooth base to begin with, and then makes me feel less inclined to put on more makeup on top. On kind of the other end of the spectrum, I've really been loving the Becca First Light Priming Filter. Now, in contrast to the Ordinary one, where I feel like it both extends the wear of my makeup and also blurs imperfections, this Becca one is actually kind of like shimmery, as the bottle sort of indicates here, right? I like this one because it makes me look like alive and awake and super ready for the day because of this like sort of slightly purpley tone to it. It counteracts any like sallowness in my skin and just makes me look like I'm glowing from within. I really love this product. It has not been featured on my channel as much as it probably should have been. I bought this back in maybe like February or so. Maybe it was April, I can't remember. It was right before they announced that they were closing, and I'm really sad to have discovered this and fallen in love with it, and now Becca's closing because I'm probably gonna savor this little bottle. I have a different kind of shimmery primer product in my project pan that has kind of been taking up a lot of my energy, but I would much rather be using this. I love this so much. All right, and then for foundation, this one is gonna come as no surprise, and this is one of the few things that I'm pretty sure would actually be the same if you asked me again in the winter. I think I would still say that one of my all-time favorite foundations is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Hydrating Foundation. This, in my opinion, is the perfect medium coverage. It never looks cakey or dry on my winter skin, and it also has really good staying power in the summer when I'm like hot and sweaty. I love this foundation so much. I've talked about it a ton on my channel, so at this point I don't want to over discuss it, but I really love this foundation for its staying power, for its hydrating capabilities, for its skin-like finish, for the medium coverage. Everything about this to me is just perfect. My other pick is one that has not come up on my channel for a long time recently, and this is the Ordinary Serum Foundation. This hasn't been talked about a ton lately on my channel because it's a little too dark for me, so in the summer it's like my perfect match, but in the winter it's just a little bit too deep. This is so affordable. I think it's $6, so I really should just pick up my winter shade. It's not that big of a deal. But regardless, as the weather has warmed up and as I've been a little bit more tan, I cannot stop wearing this. It's just such a perfect level of coverage. It's what's on my face today. It's enough of a blur and enough coverage that I feel like my imperfections are covered, but it's not so much that it feels like a completely blank canvas. It just kind of covers and blurs imperfections. I absolutely love this foundation so much, and I'm excited to be wearing it again this summer. I feel like my concealers could be partially pretty predictable here too, but I will go over them, even though I have really talked about these so much on my channel. The first is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This is my absolute favorite go-to concealer for when I want a little bit more coverage. This has pretty much the highest coverage I would ever want to put on my under eyes while still being hydrating and just like a nice, really smooth finish. I just think for $6 at the drugstore, this is really pretty unbeatable for the quality. So if you're looking for a high coverage concealer, I would reach for the e.l.f. But if you're looking for something that's a little more medium coverage, even maybe leaning on the lighter coverage side if you use less of it, I would steer you towards the ColourPop Pretty Fresh concealer. This concealer is very thin in consistency, but it packs quite a punch under your eyes. So it's by no means like a high coverage concealer, but I would call it medium, and you can definitely sheer it out to more of like a light, very natural looking wash of kind of color under your eyes for more of that no makeup look really easily. It's such a thin consistency that it really just like spreads and glides super nicely. It never looks dry and cakey under my eyes, which is like my biggest concealer pet peeve. It's also very affordable, so I appreciate both of these actually for the fact that they perform as if they are very high-end concealers for very affordable price tags. Okay, and then on to powders. And just a little disclaimer here for those of you who might be new to my channel. In the winter, I only set my makeup under my eyes, but in the summer, I set my whole face usually. So I like these powders, both of them, because they specifically work well in both of those contexts. I don't necessarily love having different powders that only work in certain seasons and stuff. I just don't go through enough powder to have that many different types of powder. So I want a powder that can do both. My first favorite up here is the Bare Minerals Mineral Veil. I have the hydrating version just because I do have very dry skin. I don't know how it compares to the original Mineral Veil just because I've never tried the original. I wouldn't say I find this like particularly hydrating, but it definitely doesn't dry out my under eyes, which is the number one thing I'm looking for. This is translucent in my eyes. Some people may debate that. I mean, you can see in the container there's a little bit of a tone there, but in my opinion, it's translucent. It does not add any additional coverage to your look. It just provides a really nice, even filtered effect. This one really blurs my pores and imperfections so beautifully. So that's why I reach for this one, is when I'm feeling like there's more texture, more pores showing up than I would like, I reach for this powder. My other option is a classic. Unfortunately, it is not cruelty-free. So if you're here for cruelty-free content, I apologize about that, but it's kind of one of the remnants of my non-cruelty-free makeup days, and I cannot bring myself to get rid of it because I cannot find a replacement for it. This is the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Powder. This one is not translucent. This one I do think adds coverage just a little bit, but it's definitely a color. It's tinted. Now, the reason I cannot find a replacement for this is because this giant container of extremely high-performing powder only costs like $5. So if you know of an alternative to this that's in even remotely the same price range, I would love to know in the comments down below. I love this powder on days where I'm not doing a lot of makeup and I just want to add a little bit of coverage and setting capabilities on certain parts of my face. Okay, moving away from base and onto my eye products. I'm gonna do brows first. They're not super exciting. They're super predictable. My two favorites are the Essence Brow Designer. It's just like a really simple sharpenable pencil. This is the teeny tiny one that's in my project pan. And my other favorite is the NYX Control Freak Clear Brow Gel. So just really quickly touching on the Essence, I like this pencil because it deposits a very small amount of pigment at a time. And as someone with naturally pretty full, fluffy, bushy eyebrows, I get frustrated by brow pencils that are creamier because they just deposit way too much pigment and I end up with block brows immediately. Whereas this Essence one is a stiff enough formula that I can really just fill in like gaps and weird spaces and stuff in my eyebrows without adding so much pigment that it looks overwhelming. The NYX Clear Brow Gel to me is just the best bang for your buck on the market. This is a huge container of brow gel. It holds my brows in place really well, and one thing I really appreciate about this clear brow gel is that it doesn't leave my brows looking shiny. I've had other clear brow gels in the past that kind of leave like a shiny residue or film on my eyebrows, and that's just not my style. I would prefer them to be held in place but matte. So I appreciate that about this one as well. Okay, mascara is a particularly hard category for me because I don't try out tons of mascaras. I kind of like to find ones that work for me and stick with them. So these are two that I've been using for years now that I think have just been super reliable for me. The first one is the Milk Makeup Kush Mascara. This is a mini size, like a sampler size, but this mascara gives me so much volume so quickly. I just adore it for that. And then my second favorite that I don't actually have with me anymore, I finished it up earlier this year, is the Tarte Lights Camera Lashes. And now I know Tarte gets kind of a lot of flack for overpricing their items, especially their mascaras, but they do go on sale almost every single year during like the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty, and they go on sale on Tarte's own website all the time. And on sale, they're like $9, so it's about comparable to any drugstore mascara. The Lights Camera Lashes in particular, I like because it gives me a ton of volume and length. It's one of the few mascaras I found that actually gives me a good compromise of both of those things. And last up for eyes are my two favorite eyeshadow palettes of the moment. This is definitely a category that would change drastically with the seasons if you asked me, but right now I'm really loving the Ofra and Samantha March collab, the Life's a Draft palette. Now I know Ofra's in some hot water right now, but I still very much support Samantha March, and so I wanted to be honest with you all and let you know that this is one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes right now. In my top two, in fact, as this video suggests. I cannot get enough of these mauve tones this summer. I think especially this past spring, I used the heck out of this palette. I absolutely love it. And I think it's gonna actually transition super nicely into fall because it does have kind of these deeper purpley tones as well. So I'm getting tons of use out of this. I absolutely love it. It's just been really reliable for me for making gorgeous, simple eye looks. My other favorite right now is the ColourPop Lust for Dusk palette. This is such a good color story. It may look kind of neutral and kind of boring, but the more I've played with this palette, the more I have found unexpected, gorgeous color combos. I am absolutely blown away by the shimmer quality in here. In particular, this purpley mauve shimmer shade and then this copper shade are like flaky, huge, gorgeous sparkles in there. They are not glitters, but they look like glitters on the eyes. I just did 2 looks with this palette, and then I'm also wearing this color story in a recent video I did, so I'll link those below just in case you want to see them, because this is a newer palette, so if you're curious about it, I'll link to those resources. But I'm just loving it, and I think part of why I love this so much is because I can really imagine myself using this, not just this summer for these like terracotta, warm brown, coppery looks, but also like into the fall and winter with the more cool tone side of things. Okay, we are getting down there. We're on to cheeks, and then we just have lips left after that. So starting with bronzer, my all-time favorite bronzer right now is the Balm Desert from The Balm. And when you look at this on camera, you'll probably notice that it has very unique undertones for a bronzer. It has almost like a reddish, pinkish, purplish base to it rather than leaning on the warmer, like orangey side of things. And it's just so flattering, and I really think especially in the summer, it gives me almost that sunburnt vibe. So I have been pulling this out nonstop this summer. And then I have strayed from this other bronzer a little bit in recent times just because I found so many things I love recently in the cheek product world. But I have been finding myself reaching back for this Alma Beauty Double Take Contour Stick non-stop this summer, specifically to get out this bronzer shade. This bronzer and this formula is the perfect bronzer for me when I want a no makeup look. It's just a tiny bit darker than my natural skin tone, so it gives me that nice bronzy glow, but it has such a skin-like finish and it's so close to my skin tone that it almost just disappears into the background. It blends out like a dream. It has fairly good lasting power for a cream product. And I'm so glad I've been pulling it back out because I kind of forgot just how much I love this. I mean, I've always known that I love it, but I forgot how good it is, and I am very happy to be reminded. I should have said I have this in the shade White Pearl, and just for context, it does have a highlighter on the other side. That's what the other half of this is. Okay, blushes. One of my blushes is gonna be no surprise to anyone, and one might come as a bit of a shock. The first, very non-surprising one is that Daniel Sandler watercolor in Caress has become my absolute summer go-to. Just like what I said about the Alma Beauty contour stick, this stuff just blends seamlessly into your skin and just looks like skin. It literally doesn't even look like there's any product on my face at all when I wear this blush. Obviously, the pigment, the color looks like a blush, but texturally, it does not look like any product is there. It's also by far the longest wearing cream or liquid product I have in my collection, so you get that really awesome skin-like finish, but you also get the wear time of, honestly, even better than most of my powder blushes. This stuff just never ever fades. My possibly less predictable blush is the Skin Blush from Kaleido Cosmetics. So I have the shade Prima Donna, and it's a really beautiful shimmery pink toned blush. And I have found that this is just giving me the best summer flush of all time. It's just pigmented enough to pack a pretty significant punch on my cheeks, but it's not so pigmented that it looks like rosy wintertime blush. Again, blush is something for me that changes dramatically with the seasons, and I have found that although I'd been using this all winter, its chance to shine is really here with the summertime. And I was reminded of how much I love this blush because one of my bridesmaids actually wore it on my wedding day. We did our own makeup and she wore this blush and it looked so stunning on her. And I was just reminded that I needed to pull this out more because it's kind of one that's just kind of in the back of my collection and the back of my mind, and it has definitely made its way to the forefront over the last month or so. Okay, my two highlighters are interesting to me because I've noticed that they're actually very similar to each other, but one is a powder and one's a cream. So the first one up here is the Salt New York Cream Tint Pro in the shade Beige. It's up here in this corner. And it's just a perfect champagne. That's the best way to explain it. It's the perfect champagne for my skin tone. It gives me a glow without looking like a bright stripe across my cheeks, and that's 99% of the time what I'm looking for. I really love the Salt formula because it's nice and creamy and balmy, but it stays nicely on my face as well, and it's not sticky, so it dries itself down, but it feels great going on. The other highlighter I cannot stop reaching for is the Dream Chaser shade in the Ofra and Samantha March palette. And again, like I said, it's just the perfect champagne for my skin tone. But this one blends into my skin so beautifully. If I place a little bit where I want it and then I buff it out the edges with a kind of a fluffy brush, it just blends so seamlessly into my skin. It honestly almost acts like a cream in some ways like that. It just meshes super well with all of my makeup. And then last up here are lips, and I tried to narrow this down to two, but I'm not really including like a lip liner, and I didn't want to do a separate category of like my favorite glosses versus lipsticks, so instead I just kind of gave myself some liberty here, and I am doing my 3 favorite lip products for the summer just across the board all together. So the first one is a classic bullet lipstick. This is the Real Hair Cosmetics Girl Power lipstick, and I've been talking about this on my channel for a long time. It's just like my perfect mauve-y pink shade. I love a color like this in the summer to round out kind of more of a bronzy look. I think it just brings some life back into my face personally, and as someone with kind of neutral leaning cool skin tone, this helps if I have a lot of warm colors on my face to kind of round things out and just bring things kind of closer back to my neutral zone. That being said, the other 2 lip colors I have here are very warm toned, and that's because in the summer I do tend to love to lean towards those warmer shades. The first one here is the ColourPop Just a Tint. So this is my favorite for like that in-between lip look where I want to just add a little bit of color, but I don't want it to be super noticeable or obvious. This is just like a perfect warm nude on me, but because it's so sheer, it doesn't overpower my face and it doesn't make me look like washed out because it's so warm. So I really, really appreciate this product. My only word of warning here is that this does have a really strong scent and therefore flavor. So if you're averse to that, I would steer clear of this one. And my other more sheer option is a gloss. This is the Tower 28 Milky Lip Jelly in the shade Cashew. And this is actually a surprisingly similar color to that ColourPop one. It's just that this has tons and tons of shine. It's very, very beautiful, and it also feels like it's nourishing my lips a lot. Like, I don't know exactly if they have skincare related claims on this product, but if they do, and they say that it's like hydrating and moisturizing, then I totally agree. And if they don't say that, then they should, because it absolutely leaves my lips in better condition than they were before I put it on. So that is it. Those are my top 2 favorite products in all of the makeup categories. I hope this was helpful, or at least interesting. I hope you enjoyed watching today. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.